Good morning, folks. This coming weekend is the Feast of the Ascension. For those of you who are older, you remember the Feast of the Ascension was on what we call Ascension Thursday, but in more recent times it has been moved to the Sunday, to the following Sunday. And so for that reason, we celebrate the Feast of the Ascension this weekend. And the Feast of the Ascension, of course, it's all about the final farewell, Jesus leaving this earth for good, if you will. We've all had that experience of leaving, of that final farewell. And I know I have had it many times, leaving Ireland, leaving my parents. And when you're leaving for a while, you always have that sort of empty feeling, if you will. So, but with regard to the Ascension, I always felt, well, he is going, but he's going from us, but he's leaving his disciples behind us. And in leaving them behind, he's telling them that they're to be there to continue on his work, number one. And number two, he's telling them, and even more importantly, he's telling them that his Spirit, that even though he's going, but his Spirit will be with them. And with the presence of the Spirit in their lives, he says, he will give you power, okay? You're going to receive power from on high. And with that power, you're going to be a witness in Jerusalem, Judea, and to the ends of the earth. So I felt personally that okay with regard to his leaving and the gift of the Spirit to his disciples. But I just want to verify, is that how other people felt about it? So on Tuesday morning, I had my men's group, and I read the story of from Acts about the Ascension of Jesus, and then I asked them a question that says, if you were one of the apostles on that occasion, Jesus is about to leave, how would you feel? Would you feel a real sense of loss that he was leaving, or a real sense of excitement in knowing that you were going to receive the Spirit and you're going to accomplish great things in his name? And I was surprised at the response, because we had over 40 people there, and we met in groups and discussed it about the question for about 10 minutes or so. And the response is almost unanimous, was that the apostles would have felt very badly at Jesus' departure. He had left once, of course, when he died, and how difficult that must have been. Those 12, 11 who had sort of put their trust in him, and who had gotten so used to him and seen his miracles, etc. His death must have been devastating as far as they were concerned. So his resurrection, on the other hand, was sort of a huge enlightenment for them. But then all of a sudden, after 40 days, when he says he's leaving again, that had to be very difficult. Now, obviously, he had said to them, I'm leaving you, but I'm not leaving you alone. That the Spirit, he spoken several times about the coming of the Spirit, and the fact that the Spirit would give them the power to go out and to do great things in his name. Now, I thought that would be, I thought that they seem to think that, and probably rightly so, that didn't really resonate well with the disciples to the extent that the Spirit, the Spirit is a spirit, and just the same as the apostles had a difficult time during his public ministry to just understand what he was doing and saying. In this instance, also, when he talked about the Spirit and the gift of the Spirit, and that they would receive power from on high, I mean, they just didn't fully grasp what that was all about. I think even in chapter 4 of John's Gospel, with regard to the Spirit, Jesus says something like this. He says, the wind blows where it will. You hear the sound it makes, where it comes from. You do not know where it comes from and where it's going. Well, the Spirit is a sort of like that. Like it's not something. The Spirit is not something that you can grasp, if you will. in your hand, and so you can understand that even though the disciples heard about the coming of the Spirit and what the Spirit was going to do for them and how they're going to be witnesses, etc., they just didn't fully grasp it, and for that reason, after Jesus did actually leave, they assembled in a house in Jerusalem, and they waited in prayer for the coming of the Spirit. So it was only when the Spirit actually came upon them, and when they experienced that uplift, if you will, that transformation, it was only then that they really understood who the Spirit was, number one, and number two, how their whole ministry experienced transformation, because they were no longer afraid. They were given given a new life and a new excitement in terms of their ministry. So, as I say, I think you learned something myself by the reaction of the men on Tuesday morning. So that's the feast we celebrate this weekend. The promise, the return of Jesus, and the promise of the Spirit. Now, all of us, of course, who listen at this point in time on Sunday, we've all received the Spirit in baptism and confirmation, but so often, even though the Spirit has been given to us, like those men who didn't know really what the Spirit was, sometimes I think we have a hard time just sort of coming to grips with the experience of the Spirit. All I can say to you today is, if you really want to feel God's Spirit in your life, then I think the normal way of experiencing the Spirit is that the more you live the Christian life, the more you surrender yourself to Christ on a daily basis. In and through that effort, then that really brings the Spirit alive in your life on that particular day. So we'll talk about a little bit more about that when we talk about the Spirit himself. Thank you.